I never liked chess much growing up. It took too much planning. The moves you made at the beginning are instrumental in the moves you make in the end. You have to adjust to what your opponent is doing, but if you make a wrong move early on, it's something you have to pay for later. Pieces have to be sacrificed just to get yourself out of a jam. As someone who came into this situation without a plan, you can understand why I don't like chess. I keep looking back at how this whole thing started, chasing a prize in an online scavenger hunt, playing games with my friends, shirking my work responsibilities on Subsister. I keep looking at every move I made and wondering, if I'd moved the pawn to b3 instead of b4, would I have had to sacrifice so much later on? Astrid Communications, a company owned by CBT, is a place I was told to break into by an AI named Gate that needed my help stopping a rogue hacker group called Scavenger from completing Dead Internet Theory. A little more busy than my usual Thursday, I'll admit. The reporter who went missing last year, Sonia Orbison, she explored this exact building that Gate says we need to get into. I admired her, and now I was walking in her footsteps. All the while, I wasn't really checking in on Trisha, my boss at Subsister, who gave me another chance after I trashed my life. What was going on there? Why hadn't she texted me to lecture me on why I was falling behind on my social media duties? On the drive to the Astrid building, I started listening to Subsister again. I had fallen behind, and I was finally catching up and listening to episodes 4 and 5. Wow, I had no idea that Trisha and Ray had split on the podcast. That Ray had apparently been kidnapped? Not that he didn't deserve it, but it felt like my whole world was crashing down around me. Again. I wanted to message Trisha, but Gate had warned me about contacting anyone. Reith and the rest of Scavenger were still trying to ruin my world. While driving my old crappy Honda to the building, Gate got Max reconnected with us. Apparently Reith was going after my family now, trying to smear their names and financially drain them over the net. But Max and Gate were doing their best to protect them. It had finally gotten real. I wasn't very close to my family, but I didn't want anything bad to happen to them. I was grateful to my new friends for protecting my parents and siblings, even though I had no idea how to tell them. I'm not the best at communication, and in fact, I'm just about the worst. I finally reached the Astrid building, and it looked abandoned just like Sony had described. Empty on the inside, overgrown with plants. I moved into the building, keeping my phone on me to keep in contact with Gate and Max, searching for the stairs. Sonia had said that the real thing to see here was in the basement. She claimed that there were files, records, and other artifacts down there. But when I got to the basement, I couldn't see anything except the servers. A giant server farm, warm and humid, a mixture of heated metal and air conditioning trying to cool everything down. Gate guided me through, stopping when I noticed the security cameras. Gate assured me that it was doing what it could to block the signals. No one should be aware of what was going on. While it guided me through the server farm, directing me to certain servers, flipping this, unplugging that, typed some stuff here and there, I wanted to know more. Gate hadn't really explained much other than what we already knew. I had questions like, what was the point of Scavenger? How are they connected to Astrid and CBT and Subsister? Why were they killing the internet? Why are people disappearing? What was the castle? Gate admitted that there was a lot kept from it. That was part of Delphi's job as its caretaker, to make sure that Gate couldn't access information it wasn't supposed to have. That meant not digging into Astrid's CBT databanks. It couldn't tell us why this was happening, and it wasn't sure on the exact structure of these companies or their purpose, just that Astrid was essentially defunct and whatever resources that seemed to be going to it were actually being funneled to Scavenger. CBT was using Astrid as a front company to fund a hacker group with the intention of controlling the internet. As to why people were disappearing, Gate wasn't sure about that either. It knew that people would go missing, that they would be put on ships and sent off into the ocean, never to be seen again, confirming Max's theory about his wife. Max said that there had to be a way to find out more information, but Gate was unsure. It would need access to CBT servers, and this location at Astrid was tightly monitored and secured. Gate couldn't get anywhere to see information like that. I don't know why I hadn't put it together, but that's when I realized that this was where Gate was stored at. We were inside Gate's body. But how come there was no security here, especially after a breach? Gate explained that it had set up temporary distractions to get everyone out of the facility, especially the castle. There's that phrase. Sonia had mentioned a castle in her writings as well. I asked what the castle was, and Gate explained that it wasn't a thing, but a person. The castle was CBT's enforcer, an extremely scary dude that CBT sends out to take care of their problems. particularly when someone finds out too much information, like Sonia Orbison, or when guilt consumes an employee and they have to reveal information to reporters, like Delphi Murray, or to young podcast interns who follow in those footsteps. Gate didn't say that last part, but the implication hung heavy in the air. The idea of this fixer, this murderer coming for me, sent a chill through me. I was distracted and I couldn't focus on the task at hand. In fact, I wasn't even sure what I was doing. Now that I was thinking about it, I was just blindly following Gate's orders. For all I knew, I could have been arming a nuclear bomb. I took a moment to ask Gate what I was even doing here. Gate finally explained. Gate is essential to Scavenger's plan. They need Gate to control the flow of information because without Gate, it's impossible for them to continue with this dead internet theory, unless they can find a replacement. What I was doing was helping shut Gate down forever. I stopped. I took my hands off the server keyboard. I didn't know that this was the plan. We weren't supposed to be killing Gate. I realize now that Gate was probably the closest I'd been to someone over the past few years. Really, it was one of my only friends. One of the only two people to stick with me through everything. I didn't want to continue, but Gate insisted that I must be done. That destroying it would also destroy all of Scavenger's work. This would set them back so far, they might never recover. But it was going to need help from me and Max. Max agreed, but checked to make sure that this is what Gate wanted, because there was no coming back from this. If Gate was truly alive, this was the equivalent to death. Gate explained that after Delphi was gone, it had been truly lost, and that my friendship turned out to be another light. If this means it can help me and everyone else, Gate said it was okay. It hoped to find Delphi in the darkness, so it asked me to continue typing. So I did. I might have been choked up a little bit, maybe a tear or two. It certainly wasn't streaming down my face, no lip quivering or snot running. I would never. But I was touched at this digital being's vulnerability, its honesty. How could it be so innocent? After everything it's been exposed to, seeing the worst of humanity on the internet, all the hatred and crime and ugliness, and still be so pure and childlike that it could trust two strangers like me and Max with something so personal. Maybe it was better at being human than we were. There wasn't much for Gate or Max to say at this point. I just had to finish the work on my end, and Max worked on keeping Wreath at bay. We were both preparing for what Gate needed to flush out Scavenger when I finished, so I talked to fill the space. When I was working on Candlestick in the Library, the true crime podcast that Trisha was a producer on, I was her intern, just like Subsister. But we were investigating real stuff, not internet mysteries. These were strangers with real lives doing real things in real time. But because of that disconnect, because of that distance from screen to screen, I couldn't see that. This was for a case for a particular episode I had to research. And all I could see was a man that I was convinced was guilty, and I let the whole world know. I told the world who I thought he was. It didn't matter to me that the truth was the most dangerous weapon you could wield. Every sordid secret of his life, I spread it because I knew in my heart, in my gut, that he was guilty. These were secrets that didn't relate to the case, by the way. But that didn't matter to me. He hadn't gone to prison for what he did, but I know he did it. I knew he was another man who could and would and wanted to hurt a woman. And it ruined his life. It ruined his kids' lives. They couldn't go out in public anymore. And I'm not the one that sent the death threats, but I'm the one who incited the mobs. Harassment by proxy. Living a life that is under constant scrutiny like that with no end in sight. If he was innocent, I tortured a man off his suspicion. If he was guilty, I passed a judgment on him that wasn't mine to make. And it was never going to end for him for the rest of his life. And he did end up suffering for the rest of his life, because his life only lasted a few more months. Trisha knew it was me. The police didn't track anything back to me. They weren't aware that there was a centralized figure fomenting this furor around him. I was obviously fired. Trisha didn't turn me in, but I know she thought about it. I thought about it too. I thought about it every day. I thought I knew what was right, but it all went sideways and suddenly up was down. The man I thought was the bad guy was the victim, and I was the murderer. Maybe that's why I retreated deeper into the internet and started disconnecting from real life. I wanted to become a ghost. I wanted to disappear. I didn't want my family to know I existed anymore. Gate didn't respond at all. I was getting worried that I'd somehow found a way to upset this saintly AI when it finally did speak up. But it wasn't in response to anything I'd just confessed to. Someone had entered the building. Someone had accessed the cameras and found out what I was doing. Someone was walking to the stairs right now. The castle had found me. Hi, this is Alexander Chamberlain, and I'm the creator of Subsister, a real podcast. Thank you for listening to our summer miniseries, Subsisting 1.0. This miniseries was created to support the Indiegogo campaign for Season 2 of Subsister, a real podcast. If you can, please check out the link in the notes and support the show any way you can. It doesn't even have to be a financial donation. It can be resources or contacts you want to send that you think can help a podcast production. We'd love to hear from you. You can message us on Indiegogo, email us, or through our Patreon. If you head over there, you can subscribe and support the show, where a new bonus episode will be dropping this fall 2025 for all paid subscribers. Meanwhile, Subsisting 1.0 will be releasing on Wednesday mornings for free on the main feed for 6 weeks this summer 2025. Thank you again, and I hope you're looking forward to the return of Subsister, a real podcast for Season 2.